So could the Insta360 Link 2C be the perfect static webcam? It doesn't have a gimbal, but it has all the image quality and improved sound quality versus the original Insta360 Link Generation 1. So I'm going to test it out today and see if it is the perfect static webcam with its half-inch sensor. So let's go. Okay, so first, this video is in no way sponsored by Insta360. All of the times when I test out hardware, if it's webcams or microphones, these are all things that I pay for, that I don't have any sponsorship from the different device manufacturers. Then you can also see the footage that I'm capturing and hear the audio from them just to prove what my opinions are, but these are all only my opinions. And I've tested probably 100 different webcams over the last 2.5 or 3 years. So let's have a look at first the Insta360 Link 2C from a hardware perspective. So the first thing you'll notice is it does have a physical shutter on the side that when it is closed, it's orange. So you can kind of see it like the Anchor cameras actually in terms of the orange color. On the top is the microphone array underneath that metal gridding, which is a lot larger than most webcams, and it has a bigger purpose in the sense that it can kind of look for ambient noise and try to cancel that out. And it's got 3 different kind of noise suppression sensors. On the back, you'll see it's got a detachable USB-C connection, which is great. There is no 1/4-20 mount on the bottom, but the base is magnetic in terms of how it attaches to the camera. Okay, so let's have a look at the base. So this is how the camera attaches to the base. It basically is its own magnetic base that will attach to the top of your monitor. I'm trying to keep this in focus. But you'll see that from the side mode, it will pivot down and pivot back up. And it has kind of the normal monitor mount with a friction rubber foot on the side of it. And you'll also see that there is an LED light when it's in operation. That's a status light in case you're using things like the auto framing or any of those controls. It will actually give you feedback to let you know that it's working on those things. Otherwise, it will shine green when the camera is operating. So pretty nice in terms of the feel of the camera and the build quality and everything. It does pretty good in terms of that. It doesn't let you mount it sideways for, like, if you want to do shorts or TikTok or vertical format. The camera only will mount landscape. So you'll be filming in landscape with this camera. Again, this is the Insta360 Link 2C. All right, so now what I want to do is actually test out the camera. Okay, so this is the Insta360 Link 2C. This is what it looks like out of the box with out-of-the-box settings, and what the audio sounds like from its microphone with out-of-the-box settings, just so you can see what it looks like and also hear what it sounds like. I gotta say, just looking at the image and having recorded a few attempts at filming this one scene, that the image quality is right up there. The sharpness is right up there with, say, a Logitech Brio 4K, the original 2017 version, which I think had probably the sharpest webcam image just from that pure tack sharpness perspective. And then my favorite in terms of color balance until now had been the OBSBOT Tiny 2 PTZ camera. And this one matches that too, because I think it's doing center metering in terms of getting the skin tones right. My lights, I've got a softbox that's about maybe 2 meters away almost on the left, and I've got a fill light that's around 2.5, 3 on my right-hand side, and these are around 5,000, 5,100 kelvins in terms of the blueness, the color temperature of them. And the auto white balance, when I turn it on and off, it's at 5,100 kelvins, so it is detecting my room light and kind of giving me the right white balance out of the box. So I think it looks really good. It's sharp. You can look at the details like around hair, eyebrows, eyes, those areas where you can normally tell if a camera has the right level of sharpness, and it's looking quite good to me. The other thing is the zoom and the autofocus is quite good too. So if I bring this image in, you can see how quickly it snaps into focus, and even as I move it in and out, it's doing a pretty good job in terms of keeping that in focus and then snapping back to focusing on my face. So again, this is doing a great job in terms of sharpness, the color balance and color tone, but this one is doing a great job, and it's arguably probably the best or one of the best static webcams that I've tested with its half-inch sensor, its optics, and its microphone, which is comparable to some of the ones that are kind of microphone first with cameras put into them, like the Samsung Go Video, the Movo Web Mic, or the Zoom Q2N, for example, where they're basically microphones where they've added a camera. This one is close to that, I think, in terms of the audio reproduction and what it sounds like. It's not perfect. It's not as good as my Shure microphone or something, or if I had a lav mic that was closer to my mouth. But for a webcam that's a meter, almost 3 feet away from my mouth, it sounds as good as at least the shotgun microphones that I've tested out, and some of the APS-C type cameras, the mirrorless cameras that I've tested in terms of onboard mics. So it's doing a great job. About maybe, I'd give it maybe a B- in terms of audio capture versus like a dedicated microphone. But that's, I think, for a lot of people, going to be the right amount of audio quality. So again, this is the Insta360 Link 2C. Okay, so as you saw, the Insta360 Link 2C does a pretty amazing job in terms of the way it looks from a color tone, color temperature perspective, and also from a sharpness perspective. It's one of the best cameras I've ever tested. I personally don't use the gimbal capabilities of the Insta360. I do have one. I don't have the gimbal version of the Insta360 Link 2, Generation 2, but I do have this one, obviously. So I think it's kind of the best, and for my use at least, where I don't need the gimbal and kind of auto tracking capabilities. It does have the auto framing capabilities, which I would say I probably don't use either because the field of view is wide enough. But the capabilities are really good from that camera. The way it looks out of the box is great. The only tip I would say is make sure that you turn off HDR if you have lighting like mine, where it's kind of fairly controlled, because the HDR just kind of brightens it and makes it really flat, with less dynamic range, at least in terms of shadows on my face and those kind of things, than what I could see. Maybe the background improves in some respects if you're outside or something. But kind of some weird things that I noticed with the Insta360 Link 2C. First, this is a strange one. When you're using the app to control it, the one from Insta360, it only lets you have the app in kind of full mode, not just the bar, because you can make it just a control bar. And the full app screen mode, and not full screen, but just the app window being completely, larger with all the functionality exposed. It will only display on your primary monitor on a Windows machine. So when you try to drag it to a second monitor, it will literally snap back to the primary monitor, which is behavior I might have seen something like this in the early Windows Vista XP days. I didn't even know this was actually a thing in terms of being able to snap it to primary, but it doesn't let you go to a second or a third monitor. And I'm running 3 monitors typically or more. And so that was a little bit of a limitation that I didn't love in terms of the app itself. But you can use the control bar and bring that around and put that on any of your monitors that you want. So that was kind of weird. The other thing that I didn't like much was that the camera doesn't support 60 frames per second at 1080p or 720p, which I think it could. I think a firmware update could probably even get it to where it would do that. I have a feeling the reason why they're not supporting 60 frames is because even at 4K, some of the things like bokeh effect, background blur, some of those different settings, if you don't use it through OBS or Teams or Zoom or whatever app supports it, because those are all running, by the way, on CPU and those different apps anyway, it's doing that, and basically it's saying, no, I want to allocate that extra bit of camera, power effectively, and how much it's writing to disk and saving and encoding, decoding, to it being a 4K video, or if you have background blur or background replacement, those types of things running, then it's also using what would have normally run that extra bandwidth kind of in extra processing against the 60 frames per second. It's kind of reserving that capacity for the background effects, which I get it, but I think even if you said you can't use it with 4K or 1080-60, I would rather have that. But right now, you can't use those effects with 4K 30, but then you're limited to 1080-30 in terms of the 1080p frame rate, which I think is a bit low. So Other than those two things though, like if you're running at 4K 30 and you're happy with your background, or you want to blur it or do something through OBS or Teams or Zoom or wherever, I do think this is probably one of the best, if not the best, cameras I've tested for a 4K or 1080p webcam, in terms of just, especially the way that it looks out of the box, the sharpness, the color balance. It's got all the things going for it. The optics, you saw that all of the lines were straight. There wasn't any kind of distortion from the lens, etc. It just looks clean. The image is nice, and it's probably the closest thing to competing with an APS-C or mirrorless camera that I've tested. So aside from maybe the Insta360 Link kind of Gen 1, which a lot of streamers and YouTubers are using that kind of in lieu of an APS-C or mirrorless camera because it is so good. It is better than even more expensive cameras that are static, like the Razer Kiyo Pro Ultra, for example, that has a lower kind of aperture value and also has a larger sensor than the half-inch sensor. But I think Insta360 has a little bit more kind of software and onboard magic to make the images come out stronger because of all of their kind of action camera work that they've done probably in the field. So huge fan of their work in that sense. And this one, I think, to me, it looks better than the original Generation 1 Insta360 Link, just purely because you don't have to tune and tweak the image quite as much as I would have had to on that camera, where to me it looks a little bit more like raw, like a bit more milky, and it needs that extra kind of gamma and extra contrast and extra kind of color balance to bring back some colors. But this one, I think, out of the box with its default tune looks really good. So again, that's the Insta360 Link 2C. And if you like this video and got value from it, be sure to give me a like. Otherwise, stay tuned. I've got a lot more things that I'm looking at. I've actually got a queue of different devices I've already purchased that I'm going to take a look at, including the OBSBot Meet 2 and a new kind of wireless lavalier microphone that's cube-shaped that I'm testing out soon. So subscribe to my channel for more videos like this. And as always, thanks for watching.